Seem like everybody watch the House of Consciousness. God, I'm tuning in here in the States to every continent. You got your holy book, your references and documents. Then hit your brother's side and get it cracking if you're confident. Sign at the TV, it don't get no more reality. It's helping us stay mindful of the struggle in totality. Humble yourself and let the commentary resonate. Living in these times, this here is sure to help you elevate.
In a new zone. Hope the dialogue ain't too strong. Y'all know that we've been waiting too long.
And ever since I stepped into this paradigm, most of the time all I got is building on my
TV is a black throne, where kings and queens come get their facts on. Just be prepared to have your mind blown.
And ever since I stepped into this paradigm, most of the time all I got is freedom on my mind. For real, for real.
What's up, brother?
Brother, everything is excellent.
How you doing? Good to see you, man.
My brother, it's good to see you. No doubt, no
One
doubt.
of our best scholars out here, right here, Professor Booker T. He was at the House of Consciousness about 2 weeks ago. What we gonna deal with today, my brother? I think you were talking about education, right?
Education and teaching our children, you know, and understanding history, you know, and how do we put this into the classroom? You know, what is it that we're talking about when we're talking about teaching our children? And to me, that becomes important. Dr. Clark used to always tell us, you know, when I asked him how I could best contribute to our community, you know, I wanted to know what is it that I could do that would contribute to us as a people. And he said, well, we'll have people that will have money and buildings, and we'll have people who are principals, but the one thing we don't have is a curriculum. You know, after you get the child into school, what is it that you want them to know? How do they grow? How do they become productive citizens of a country, even of a universe? What is it that we should know? And so that's what I spent my life doing, attempting to develop a curriculum for our children and for our community. Our community who has never been taught this, and the children who need to be taught this. And to return back to primary sources, because for me, primary sources are clearly the most important thing. Because we can get all into the emotion that we want to, but see, I stay away from emotion. Because emotion is a trap that you get into, and you lose the science of what it is that you're really trying to tell young people. Because young people, their minds crave order and arrangement. And they need to have that order and arrangement that takes them to the point where you can understand and they can understand through a common sense approach, because children function through common sense. Emotion they get when they may go off a little bit, but when they're in a classroom, when they're really dealing with stuff, they are looking strictly for a common sense approach to get them from point A to point B so that they can understand how they got there, and if they choose to do it again, they can go back to A and get back to B without anybody helping them. Emotion stops that from happening. And so I've always focused on science, and that's why folks say to me, you know, that they may not be familiar with my work, and I do that on purpose. You know, because Dr. Clark used to also tell us that black folk could do anything they want on the planet as long as they don't run out in the street and tell everybody what they're doing. Because you got to understand the purpose is not to let you do this. And so it goes against the common sense to go out and tell people what you're doing, because the school system doesn't want this. The school system does not want this. We've already found in Mississippi, as well as other places around the country, that there is a direct route from school to prison. Here in New York City, I call it a Rikers Prep.
Right.
Because they are and children are prepared for prison in the hallways of junior high school.
Yes, sir. How so?
Because they're kicked out of classrooms.
Right.
You see, when you're in elementary school, teachers have to be very careful about kicking children out, because you're still responsible for them. But in junior high school, they can throw you out until you stand in the hallway. And so when one brother or sister is thrown out in the hallway, down the hall there's another brother and sister in the hallway. That's how they meet. There's a very good chance that they're going to go to their zone school. When they go to their zone school, that is when they are pushed out. See, I don't believe in high school dropouts. I believe in high school push-outs, because they've been pushing them off this cliff for quite a while. So that by the time they get into high school, that is when street organizations can draw them in, because street organizations, whether we like it or not, treat some of our children better than their own families do.
That's true.
And we have to realize this, whether we like what we say or not. Street organizations is family. That's why they say fam, okay? And when they are families, and when they feel, oh, I can talk over that.
All right, good.
I've been on the block before, you know that.
Good.
When your family, that's what children search for, family. And so my thing is to be that type of adult that can draw a young person to understand that I love you and respect you like you're my child, like I used to tell all my children. I'm not your daddy biologically, but I'm your daddy as long as I'm in this room. So you better listen to what I got to say. So I am your father. Every teacher is a student's father, whether they want to admit it or not.
Right.
And teachers have to understand that. If you can't handle it, then don't become a teacher. You know, it's like people who are rap stars or who are into entertainment or sports that say that they don't like to be hounded by people. But when you stepped into that spotlight, you should know that's going to come with it. People are going to ask you for your autograph. They're going to ask you for certain things. Being a teacher, you are that child's parent.
Right.
They view you that way. And I'm an early childhood teacher, kindergarten. I had the 5-year-olds. They say, you look like my daddy. I wish you were my daddy. Can I call you daddy? I say, I am your daddy. And that's the responsibility that we have to take as a community. So when we see the young brothers, no matter what street organization they may belong in, or sisters that belong in street organization, don't curse that. Try to be the family that their families never were to them. And you can start just by saying hello, hotel. No long drawn out conversation because they really don't want to hear too much. But if you address them with respect, the next time they see you, they might want to hear a little bit more about it. And then next time, pretty soon you're on the corner like we're doing here with a whole conversation. So these are the kinds of things that we have to deal with and understand, you know? And this is what we are hoping to develop as a curriculum and as a school for our children. And that's why I'm out here. Because I'm not going to fight that system. That system is not failing. That system is succeeding.
Teach.
Because they are meant to miseducate our children. Why should they educate our children?
Right.
Why should they leave their homes 3 hours away, come all the way into this, and leave their children off in the private schools that they're paying a lot of money for, and come into our schools to educate our children better than what they're paying all that money for in the schools where they came from? They're not failing, they're succeeding. We're failing to see what the master plan is.
That's right.
And I'm here just to tell you that there isn't a way that we can educate our children that they can master the sciences, biology, chemistry, because I'm not just about culture. I am about culture, but culture through disciplines. To understand the math of the pyramids, to understand the science of the pyramids, to understand chemistry and physics, language arts, history, geography. I want our children to know every part of the planet. I want them to understand astronomy. I want them to understand everything that they're learning in the system. I want them to learn with us. But I want them to learn through us, through our eyes, because we were put on the planet with the right to look at the world through our eyes and not through anybody else's.
That's right.
That's a right. But we have not assumed that right yet, because we are deeply steeped in what's called white supremacy.
That's right.
And once we get rid of that notion, and let me tell you something else about white supremacy. White folk need to get rid of white supremacy, because that's hurting them more than it hurts us.
That's right.
Because it's making them think they're somebody that they really are not. And guess what? The Dolly House is falling right now. And they're about to learn exactly what they are and who they are. And there are people who can change their ways. I'm not spending my time trying to do that. I'm not even trying to change the ways of our people. I'm just trying to change the ways of those that are ready to make this move. I don't have time to convert. If I have to convince you of what I have to say, nothing I can say will convince you.
That's right.
If I don't have to say anything to convince you, then just let's get it on. I don't have to say anything. I don't have time to convert. My days of converting are over. 3 out of 100 folk, I'm aiming at that. 3 out of 100. If they say there are 30 million African peoples, and there's more, but let's say there's 30 million, 43, okay, well let me give you my math with 30 million. If it's 43, my number's gonna be bigger. But with 30 million, 3% of 30 million is 90,000. That's a good number to start our nation with. And I'm ready to go with that.
Question. How important, and I'm glad you speak it natural Tahuti.
Hey,
Right.
brother, what's
Yes,
up?
sir. Right.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you're speaking on curriculum, because it's so very important, because, and this goes out to all of the lecturers, the teachers, all of us that assume the position of teaching.
how important in this new African school of teaching that we have is it to respect each one of our curriculum? Because of a curriculum, you have many different offices, right? Like I specialize, what I specialize in is about the African goddess. That's what I specialize in. I studied and learned biology and science and genetics of the woman, and also all of the different matriarchal systems. That's what I specialize in. How important is it for each one of us as teachers to respect each other's title of teaching? Because we're bumping heads here. One brother think it's more important because he's teaching economics, that because you're not teaching economics, that you're not on the right path. But we all have a special talent that we have. Answer.
The way I see it is like this. We have finger, we have liver, we have heart, we have knee, we have toe, we have many different parts of the body. No one part of the body is the most important part of the body. What's important is that there is a single-mindedness within the body, which is the pineal gland, which could be our elders, that guides the body to function as one. So there is no subject area that is most important. It just, every one of them is important to know as it relates. Like it's very important to have a very strong finger. It's very important to have strong knees. It's important to have strong legs, good heart, good brain. But you can have the finest brain in the world, but if your body not functioning, that brain ain't moving nowhere.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
So to me, it's important, as Brother Tahuti is saying, is that you just take it all together and understand that every part of the body is important, and that we all work together. And go to Kemet. You'll see that there were nomes or cities, and every one of those cities was dedicated to a different patron. You had the city of Asar. You had a city of Heru, Edfu. You had the city of Tehuti. You had a city that was dedicated to On, the sun. You had a city dedicated to Ptah. And all of them had priests and priestesses, experts in that area. However, when it came time to party, everybody marched together at the Waset, or the temple. Everybody marched together. So it becomes important that we get out of the... See, this divide and conquer thing, you see Dracula, you see the vampire?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you see people in Dracula, they spend the whole movie trying to escape the vampire. However, once they caught by the vampire, bit by the vampire, they start to act like the vampire. You see? Although they tried to avoid it, they got bit. So it is possible for human people to attempt to escape negativity, but once bit by it, you become it. Wow. So what we got to do is find an antidote for that vampire bite. What Dr. Khalid called the blood sucker. That's my brother, you know.
Let me ask you this question, brother. I know you're dealing with education, but I want to get this question in before you go deep into it. You know, we got Hebrew Israelite brothers amongst us, and we always find ourselves debating and arguing over ancient Egypt or the Hebrew Israelites. I ask you, where was the Hebrew Israelites at the time of ancient Kemet? Did they exist? Was they anywhere on the planet at the time of ancient Kemet?
Okay. Now I'm gonna have to answer that question because I have a feeling I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to walk together. We're gonna have to walk together on
Go
this
ahead,
Sunday.
brother.
Because I know you
I'm
take
gonna walk with you.
Okay, let's walk together on this. Yes, they did.
I agree.
But they existed as Africans.
There you go.
See,
There
all these religions are formed organizations developed out of one spiritual system.
There you go.
So yeah, they were there. Muslims were there. Christians were there. Buddhists were there. Zen
But they
Buddhists
was
were
not
there.
called that.
Well, there were no names at that time, but what they were called was Africans. If you want to call it African, we don't even know if we call Africans.
Push.
And I don't even care what we call ourselves. We existed. That's what's important.
Right.
What's important is the tenets of life that you live. What you call it is a whole nother thing. Because when you get down to it, Rasta got it right, there's but one love. And we get into all these, I just don't deal with these internal debates amongst us as a people because we have too much work to do.
There you go.
To get involved in these insignificant, superficial differences between the texture of our hair or the complexion of our skin or the width of our nose. It means nothing. Everybody is an African. And the African family goes from, if you want to call it coloration, from light black to dark black.
That's right.
And that's all I want to deal with right now. I'm dealing with people who are ready to step and do the work necessary that Malcolm did and that Marcus Garvey did. Blessings on that brother we just celebrated his birthday.
Right.
Going back to the days of Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois.
That's right.
Martin Delaney.
There you go.
Go back to Ida B. Wells, one of the greatest human beings to ever live.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We don't need to have all of these discussions. Everybody tried to tear apart the difference between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington.
Right.
They both were right.
That's right.
But they were right in their own way.
There you go.
Okay? Everybody talks about the fact that Malcolm X and
King.
Dr. King, they were both right.
That's right.
See, as African folk, Ma'at says you balance.
There you go.
But we're living in a society that the vampire don't balance. The vampires say, you with me or you against me. Didn't he tell you that?
That's right.
You either with me or you against me. There's no concept that I could be with you and me too. In other words, you can't love your African self and not hate European. But that's their problem because in developing their self-love, they had to hate African folk. So they think that the last thing I would ever do is try to pay somebody back for what has happened to us. I don't have time. You're not that important in my life right now. We have to save the planet. Not only our people, but the planet. We got to save the water, the earth, the air, the fire.
You dropped some powerful information at the House of Consciousness, and I would love for you to do it while I got the people out here going into Ma'at, as you can see, Ma'afa.
Okay.
Go into the concept of Ma'afa and what it really meant. Ma'afa.
Well,
What we
Ma'afa,
gonna tell you right now.
Kiswahili
the pictures
language.
behind you.
Ma'afa, Kiswahili language, spoken in the largest African language. It's in the countries we call Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, parts of Congo. Ma'afa comes to us in its definition. Dr. Malefi Asante, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Maulana Karenga, Shashi McIntyre, they define it as a terroristic disaster. A terroristic disaster. Something that happens that terrifies the human being, terrifies the nature of a person, attempts to dehumanize them and take the very essence of who they are. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop wrote in his book, Civilization or Barbarism, he said there are three things that an oppressor will do to someone whom they wish to oppress. Number one, they will take their history, they will take their language, and then they will take their psychological factor. Psychological factor would include values, interests, and principles. What are your values? Okay, what are your interests? What are your principles? As an African person, of what interest and what value to me is knowing Cristobal Colon? This man who came and brought a terroristic disaster to indigenous peoples. Of what value is he to me? That in October they celebrate his birthday. But what reason do I have to celebrate him? As a human being, people need to understand that just because he's your hero don't mean he's my hero. And you should respect and understand why I'm not going to embrace him.
That's yours when you're ready.
You have to understand why I would not embrace him, why I would not care for him, why he would not mean anything to me. No more than I would make somebody who caused great pain to another people their hero. I wouldn't do that to somebody. If somebody has brought hurt and pain to you, who am I to make you want to honor them? And what am I saying about myself and my feelings towards you when I demand that you do? And think that you own something if you should honor somebody that way? What am I thinking if I could fall into the hole to actually want to honor that individual? What am I saying about myself? What am I saying when I honor someone like George Washington, who owned over 300 Africans against their will, treated them horrifically, sent Captain Sullivan into Onondaga territory in northern New York to destroy the Onondaga people?
And he was a pedophile.
Of what value is he to me? And why should I honor him? I need to honor Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X. You may not like him, but that's a personal thing. And I'm not going to make you honor him I'm not going to try to make you honor him. I don't care if you honor him, because the fundamental principle is that I honor him. And that's all that matters. When you deal with the terroristic disaster and we talk to our children in particular about who they are as a people, when you stop and think that, let's just say we all out here like this and they're children and the children are playing and having a good time and enjoying themselves, and all of a sudden somebody that we've never seen before, maybe they could be green, let's say. Oh, no, not green. Another color. But a color we never saw before. They come and they snatch us. And they put us in chains. This initial impact, something's gonna happen with that initial impact. Only the best of the best are gonna survive that initial impact. You understand? There are some people gonna fight back, they're gonna get killed. There are some people that are going to struggle but get chained. They're going to be marched. Let's say they march us from here to California. And let's say along this path, some will die, some will fight back, some will escape. But the bottom line is that to get from here, walking all the way over there, only the best of the best are going to survive. After they get to this other section, they're going to be put in dungeons. On top of each other, going to the bathroom on each other. Think about this. Vomiting on each other, crying on each other. They're going to separate us by language so we can't talk to each other. And after months of being in this chamber, in this prison, they're all going to put us in ships. But to have survived that experience in that prison, only the best of the best could survive. Are we walking together on this?
Yeah, right.
Does it make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
Only the best of the best are going to survive.
That's right.
The strongest mentally, physically, and spiritually.
That's right.
Going to survive. Going to put you on a ship. You don't know where you're going. Don't know if you're coming back. You have no idea what's about to happen. Psychologically, you can imagine what must be going on in a child's mind. Physically, you can imagine not eating the foods that you were used to when you were in your community, when we were up here enjoying ourselves and going to Uptown Juice Bar and enjoying that. Even some of us go to Crack Donald, that's all right. Murder King, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but that's all right. So what we're facing now is the people that are put on a boat and they're brought over to a place, don't know nothing about it. Only the best of the best could have survived that voyage. When they get to the other side, they're going to be tortured. They're going to be made to say that their name is no longer Kunta Kinte, but that it's Toby. And they're going to beat that into you. They're going to torture you into that. And so you can see that once they get to this area, all of these pictures that you see here coming from a book, Without Sanctuary, what African people actually went through. Look at this. This is what African people have gone through. We're still going through this now, but it's all a mental thing now. We're still being lynched and put to. It is because, and the other thing that's bad is that some of us volunteer for it, so that's another problem.
That's right, they like paying.
Yeah, 97 out of 100.
That's right.
That's why I'm going after the 3. Because if you're willing to do this to yourself, what can I possibly tell you to unhook that chain or that rope from around your neck? I don't know what to tell you.
Triple darkness.
Maybe you'll learn, maybe in time. So now there's people here, the best of the best are going to survive this. They're going to be on a plantation for years and years, treated the way we know they've been treated, this way. They're going to come up out of this experience, and the best of the best can only survive this. Only the best of the best can survive this. And then we're going to exist in this situation up until 1865, give or take. We're going to fight for our rights. We're going to fight for liberation. Lincoln didn't free us because he wanted to. He freed us because he had to. And that's another great challenge. We think people doing favors for us when in reality they're really doing it because they can't hold us anymore. So they let us go and say, I set you free. No, I bust loose and I got free. And that's really the history of how black folk were liberated. And so we went through all of this, and what's so sad is that we really don't understand economically what happened to us at this particular point in history. Because at the time of our liberation, there's a book that Molefi Asante wrote. It's called Journey of Liberation. And he talked about from 1865 until 1870, 14% of African people became literate. They knew how to read, write, and calculate. They were able to do things in 5 years that had been denied them historically for a very long time. Between 1865 and 1900, 41% of African people were literate. Now, what's sad about that? That number is higher than today.
Right.
So with more money, more resources, more schools, more everything, why are we worse off now in their system than we were when we were recently emancipated?
Do you think
There
we
must
worse
be a
off?
plan. Say again?
You think we worse off as a people?
We were what?
I said, do you really believe that we are worse off today than we ever
No.
could have been?
No, I'm talking educational.
Okay.
I'm speaking about being in the system. When we taught ourselves, there's a book called Self-Taught by Dr. Williams.
There you go.
There's a book by Richard Anderson that talks about the education of the Negro. That's the word he used. From 1865 to 1935. We are an educated people. We know how to educate our... We started education. We taught the world how to read and how to write. We taught the world how to calculate. Every building that exists is based on an African concept
That's right.
of mathematics and engineering. We taught the world how to do this. But what they did was they contorted it, they contaminated it, and now they've given it back to us. We think we know what we're looking at, and we do because we gave it to them before they vomited. That's what Wade Noble says. Our experience today is vomit. When the ancient Greeks sat at the feet of the Kemites, the meal that they ate intellectually was very rich. The Greeks did not have, if you want to call them Greeks, because they don't really exist, but that I'll use that word for now. They didn't have the intellectual enzymes to digest that food, so they regurgitated it. That is the educational system. Before you throw that vomit out, it smell bad, look bad, don't want to eat it. Don't throw it away though, because inside that vomit is the original meal. Exactly. Don't throw it away. Examine it. Study it, like we're doing out here. Study it, and then you find out what was cooked at that meal. Recook it, because you and I have the intellectual enzymes to digest that meal. And when we do that in our classrooms, we will do in education what Michael Jordan did on a basketball court.
Right.
What the Williams sisters did on the tennis court. What our beautiful sister Gabby did in gymnastics. We'll take it to another level where they won't even be able to teach us because they will not understand the information themselves. And I'm saying that that is possible, but we have to get serious about getting sick. We must become issue-oriented instead of personality-oriented. Oh, I don't like him. Oh, she thinks she all that. I don't care about people's personality. If you got something that's gonna lift me up, I'll forego your personality in order for me to deal with the issue of getting the information that you have. And that's what's important, because we have everywhere I study our history from ancient Kemet right to this day. I have never seen where Europeans had the power to come in and do anything to us. I see them coming into a people who are fighting amongst themselves. And they take advantage of that inner turmoil and turn brother against brother and sister against sister. And right now we are living in New York City as the majority people. Some of us speak English, some speak Spanish, some speak Jamaican, some speak Haitian Creole. But if you're Puerto Rican, you're black.
Thank you.
You're Dominican, you're black.
Thank you.
And what we have to understand is that the only difference between a Puerto Rican, a Dominican, a Jamaican, a Haitian, and a New York black person is a boat stop. And this is Dr. Clark talking. Until we get rid of these insignificant, superficial differences amongst ourselves and get serious about ourselves, and to embrace our brothers and sisters who speak Spanish or English or Dutch, who are light complexion, dark complexion, have very curly hair or straight hair. Forget that. Because what's going to liberate us is we're acting like that body. Oh, hey, what's up? How you doing, family? All right.
All right, your topic is education, too.
Yeah.
Go in.
And teaching our young people. I mean, you know, when I see young people like this, I see them with that Egyptian nemes on their head. Young princes and princesses. That's what I see. Powerful people who are ready to, but we got to step up, adults. we have to be willing to tell our young people the truth about who they are. Let me just read something to you.
Go ahead, go in.
I teach college.
Oh, you teaching college now?
Yeah, well, I've been teaching now. This is my 9th year.
Okay.
I teach in upstate New York.
Where do you teach? Upstate New York?
I teach in SUNY Newports. That's like exit, I think it's 18 on the New York Thruway.
What do you teach there?
I'm in the Black Studies department. I teach a course. This term I'm teaching Introduction to Africa.
And what's that?
This book, When We Ruled, is written by Robin Walker. It's a brother from London who has taken a lot of material and put this history in a text.
The real history.
Oh yeah. Our story. Okay. And I'm using this as a text, but I just want to read something to you. Because see, these young people go to school, if by chance it's the schools that I think it is. Hey man, you drinking my water, bro?
Yeah,
man.
I got you when you're ready. I got a cold one for you.
Brother, I'm only playing. I just thought I'd get you that way. They teach our children that African slaves
That's the beginning of our history.
came to America.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, children in their minds say, okay, well, if they were slaves in Africa, it would only make sense that they would be slaves in America. So what's so different about that? No, human beings were taken from Africa.
Thank you.
And enslaved. Now, I know I'm not using my language, but let me just say it so that people can understand as it relates to, watching this. They give the impression that Africans were slaves. They had no talent. They had nothing to offer. They were lucky that we came and got them because they wouldn't have what they have today, okay? Let me just read you something to give you a sense. There's a paper that was written, and I just want to read this straight up. It says, it is one of the paradoxes of history that Africa, the mother of civilization, remained for over 2,000 years the dark continent. To the modern African, the region where ivory was sought for Europe and slaves for America, in the time of Jonathan Swift, 1667 to 1745, geographers in drawing maps fill in the gaps with savage pictures of African people. Where towns should have been, they placed elephants. Light fell on a buried treasure of antiquity a few years ago. The Sunday Times on 23rd of May, 1999, and young brothers and sisters, I'm talking to y'all because this is what you should be hearing in your class about you. An astonishing article entitled Jungle Revealed Traces of Sheba's Fabled Kingdom.
Come on.
Who was the Queen of Sheba, really a black woman from Nigeria? Now think about what's going on here. See, because what they do is they take our history, and they put superficial meanings and places and things, so we're thinking of Sheba, but what we're really dealing with is something far deeper than that, because historically, the story might be right, but mythologically, it's off kilter. So we think it's a mythology, but it's really a history, but it's a history that we need to define for ourselves. The evidence emerged of the Queen of Sheba. At one time, scholars used to divide 3,000-year history of southern Nigeria into 4 great cultural periods. They used to speak of the Nok culture, the Igbo Ukwu culture, the Yoruba kingdom, and the Benin Empire. This view was boldly challenged by the findings of a university archaeological team led by Dr. Patrick Darling. Since 1994, the team discovered and mapped the remains of yet another Nigerian kingdom, previously covered by centuries of forest overgrowth. It means like the forest grew up over the city, so they couldn't see that it was a city at one time. Okay? The team discovered, and it was on BBC, British Broadcasting Company, described the discovery as possibly Africa's largest single monument. At Eredo, E-R-E-D-O, in southwest Nigeria, Darling's team found a huge earthen wall with moated sections, okay, with little holes in it. This encircled an ancient kingdom or city, from the base of the ditch to the summit of the rampart measured a towering 70 feet. According to the Observer in the Sunday Times, the rampart, the structure, was 100 miles long.
Wow, they're protecting themselves.
But that's how big the city was. Nigeria City, 100 miles long. This is at the same time they're saying we're primitive. They're unearthing this in Nigeria. Remember, we're not talking about Egypt.
Because they always want to refer back to that one civilization, not others.
And I just wanted to add on, since you're talking about Sheba, I think it's equally important for people to know that the goddess Alat, one of her titles was Sheba. A lot of people don't know that. Just to let you know that Mecca was not Arabian, or yeah, it could be Arabian, but they were Africans. Because the goddess Alat, who people don't know, name was also Sheba.
And the kingdom was called Saba.
Saba. Yes, sir.
And in Kiswahili, that means 7, which is a divine spiritual number.
Oh my God.
Okay?
Broke it down.
You see
That's
what?
right. A lot of people don't know 7
Yes.
is the goddess.
Yes. See, very spiritual. You see, once we understand this, we don't have to ask other people's right to be who we are. But let me continue, because there's more to this story. Now, mind you, it's 100 miles long, and it formed a rough circle. Okay? But now check this out. Although it formed a rough circle, more than 400 square miles in diameter. 400 is 100 miles long, but it formed a rough circle that came out to be the diagonal of the circle was 400 miles.
That's a big kingdom, yeah.
At a time when we supposed to, now mind you now, this is going to date back to 1000 AD. This city dates back 1000 AD.
So that's after the Roman Empire.
That's after the Roman Empire, but that's a whole time before anybody of European descent came to Africa.
That's true.
This city is already up.
That's right.
But the technology that it took to build the city had to have started centuries before that. You just don't wake up one morning and build a city 100 miles. You got to have the technology to build that. So imagine how long the kingdom existed. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about what our children should understand as it relates to who they are and what they are
I was
and what they
reading
come
somewhere
from.
that our ancestors, like African people, being not only are they the first world people, we existed like 100,000 years before any other people. So anything that anybody else learned, they had to learn from people of color.
No question.
Because we lived for hundreds of centuries before anybody else.
Sister, let's
so
take...
whether it's kingdoms or aqueducts or whatever you want to make, we were the fathers and mothers of that.
But let's just take that number from hundreds of thousands to many millions. There was a time when the only people on the planet were African people.
Right, so the white
Right.
we knew Africans.
They did not exist.
Right.
They came out of us when we went into the Ice Age.
Right.
And they depigmented themselves. Africans. Dark complexion, curly hair,
Wait,
wide
right,
nose,
right.
thick
Hold
lip.
it. Say that again, Professor.
We were talking about the fact that African people, moving away from the equatorial belt of Africa into the northern climate, which would be the northern part of Ireland, the northern part of England, Germany, going across through Europe. The 51st parallel is where Dr. Diop talks about. 51st parallel is like a quasi-polar cap. When Africans moved into that section, over thousands of years, what came up underneath them was something known as the Worm II Ice Age. It lasted from about maybe 60,000 to about maybe 20,000 years before the Christian
Come
era.
on. Uh-oh.
In your skin, in your epidermis, you have, some people say 5 layers, some people say 4. You have an epidermis and a dermis. Your epidermis is very thin.
Right.
You have layers: stratum corneum, stratum luciderm, stratum granulosum, the stratum spinosa, and the stratum basale. Don't need to remember that, but we should have learned this in biology, 5th grade. The skin. In the bottom 2 layers, the spinosa and the basale, there is a biochemical known as 7-dehydrocholesterol.
Yes, sir.
In this two strata, when light and heat energy comes down and hits the skin, it's pulled down into the bottom two layers, and that is where 7-dehydrocholesterol converts inactive vitamin D1 and D2 into active vitamin D, D3, D4,
Right.
and that is what is then able to absorb the calcium that brings life to the human body.
Essential.
In the Ice Age, it is essential to life.
Right.
And the evidence of it being lacking, particularly in dark-skinned people, is rickets, bone deformation. That's what happens to the body if you don't have it.
I thought it was osteoporosis.
Yeah, that's in the older people.
And rickets in children.
That's what I.
But that's in European people, right?
No, that.
No.
Well, that's for anybody who lacks the ability to convert
Right.
light and heat energy
Right.
into what's necessary. That absorbs
So
the
all
calcium.
humans don't take the sun and get their vitamin D?
All of us.
All of us do.
All of us do.
But you see, when you got into a very cold climate, this is like a suntan. This protects your skin from harmful rays.
Definitely. Look at how
Okay.
look at those lines that they got.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? But even deeper than that, you have three different kinds of melanin. You have skin melanin, you have neuromelanin in the brain, and you have eumelanin or pheomelanin in the internal part of the body.
Right.
Your muscles, your glands, your skeletal system, okay?
Right.
And it's according to what your body needs that will make that melanin do what it do, as Rachel.
So were you saying that the Africans that got bottled up there during Worm 1 and 2,
Worm 2.
they depigmatized themselves? Did they get depigmatized?
Well, what happened was, to explain it in a way that science would appreciate, when you're in a cold climate, and I'm going to show you how it happens, because it happens to us every day. When we were in a climate, okay, let me give you this, and then you can understand the other. Right now, we're in the presence of very strong sun. We all, no matter how dark we may be, got darker.
That's right.
Carbon atoms, melanin, join and create a dark tan. Okay? The more sun, the reason why that happens is because the more sun, the darker your skin, the more protection.
Okay.
So your body's taking care of it. Okay. We're gonna go through September, October, November, December. What are we gonna look like in January?
We look a lot paler. We look a lot
Exactly. Imagine this happening over thousands of years.
without the sun coming and making you dark.
Without
so
the
it's
sun.
Like you're coming.
There were generations that never even saw the sun. It was cloud. The clouds were over that polar region. Some generations lived and died and never saw the sun as an orb. They might have seen the sun like we're seeing it right now.
Professor, let me get this right. Are you saying that Africans migrated into these areas, were there for thousands of years,
Yes.
depigmatized, mutated, and now those are the Europeans that are running the planet?
One step beyond that.
So let me ask you another question.
Well-
If that is a fact, would it be safe to say,
Come on now.
put all the dogma aside, put the fact away that, yeah, these people are war criminals, are they just light-skinned Africans?
I think they're new Africans.
Get the camera on them, Sadnetta. Where you at?
I'll put it on me myself. I'd rather say that another way.
Okay.
Scientifically speaking.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing as light skin.
Okay.
It's depigmented.
Depigmented.
That's the scientific term. They're depigmented. In other words, the pigment has not been allowed to process itself the way it should as nature would have it. Plants were born to be green, humans were born to be black. And anything that moves from that, moves from the archetype into a form of the original.
So now,
But let me go back to a point you made, brother Toady.
relax. This is important.
You spoke of
This is important.
a mutant.
Right.
The Europeans that we know of today are not mutants.
Okay. Break it down for us.
The Europeans that we know of today, when Europeans first came out of the mountains, they came with a certain mindset, a phobia, a xenophobia, where they only mated with each other.
Right.
They forbid themselves. Now, nature doesn't do that. An albino peacock will not mate with another albino peacock. An albino peacock will only mate with a colored peacock. An albino gorilla in Spain,
Right.
named Snowflake,
Snowflake.
had many children and grandchildren, but never would mate with an albino gorilla.
Because that would destroy them.
They knew that nature told them through their own instinct that if I mate with a mutant, I will only work my way off the evolutionary chain.
Right.
So nature steps in with animals and even plants, even cockroaches. Even cockroaches.
So is it safe to say when they came out of Europe, they should have just came right back
They
and
should have
made it?
found the biggest,
The
blackest
man they
person.
could have found.
Or woman. Find
That's
black
right.
people. And even
you
if
know
you
what
were
I
light
think?
brown, they say, no, I needed black. I want
think a
black.
lot of white women today, instinctively, they're doing that too. They know what time it is in history, and a lot of them white women are going getting brothers because they want their children to be on the right team. That's all I think.
It's not only that, but they want them to survive.
That's right. Okay.
But let me tell you this. In them only mating with their own, mutants mating with mutants, they did not create mutants, they created mutations of mutants.
There we go.
Okay. All right.
Don't believe me? Chapter 6. In any evolutionary book, the chapter is called evolution. Study Punet's table. You know where you got the big B and the small b, and you see recessive and dominant? Don't believe a word I say. I'm not here to make you believe me. I just want to make you think. I just want to take you out of your comfort level of accepting the okie doke and think. Think about what our children deserve. Our children deserve better than what we're giving them.
Absolutely.
And while we're talking about this rap music and everything else, well, who let that happen? We let that happen.
We let that come.
We let that happen. We should have been on post,
Not that language.
not on our watch.
Let me.
But now that it's happened, now that it's there, let us do all that we can do for our children.
So
Because
why-
we love them, we respect them, we know we do. So let us now begin to build our own schools. Forget this system out here.
Thank you.
It's not going to work.
Not just for school, but for work, for everything.
Then
For everything.
and I'm saying let's go with the 3 out of 100. Start there.
What's the 3 out of 100?
The 3 are the ones that are ready. 97 need help. 97 need, by matter of degree, more time. But right now, I'm about those that are ready to jump on board, ready to get on this train and do what needs to be done for our people. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, I've been in the system. I retired after 31 years in the New York City Board of Education. The Board of Education is not failing. They're succeeding
And do it according to their
because they
plan.
are very successful. We are failing to see what they're
doing to us. Because it's been set up that way for us not to be educated.
I would like, you know.
There's not enough jobs now. You think they want to educate us? They
My
want to
name-
educate us less now. Do you see what? I remember when I went to school 20 years ago, and you got a better education. Now they truly know there's not enough jobs. You think they want to even give your kid a chance? These kids said they can't write a 5-page report when they finish high school.
All right, I want to say this. You know, I'm in the community.
Introduce yourself to the
My name is Brother
professor.
Seville, man. I'm National Tahuti brother.
all right. Hey,
You know
brother.
what I'm saying? And I'm in my community, and my main focus is, like my brother's focus is dealing with the woman or the feminine force. I'm dealing with the family unit in the household because I know basic family unit is destroyed. You know what I'm saying? It barely has any men in it. And then the women in it have a different perception of
Talk
who they
up
are.
so the people can hear
You know
you.
what I'm saying? They have a better perception of who they are. So what I'm doing, I'm going in the community, I'm teaching parenting classes because at some point we was in Africa, we were taught how to be a man, taught how to be a woman, and a lot of these things are not being taught. How important is that for us to tackle, you know what I'm saying, when we're dealing with education?
It is
and trying to
very
bring our
important.
people up?
You don't know that.
Well, I think in terms of answering the question, I think that once we get to the point that we are educating ourselves about ourselves through our own self, I think all those answers will come forward. I believe the bottom line is for us to be able to regather our personhood. And when we regather our personhood, the feminine principle will embrace her femininity and the malehood will embrace their maleness. So I believe that a lot of the answers comes through simple and straightforward education that is not put upon a person, but is presented to a person. And that's why I say I'm not trying to get no one to believe me. This is not a dogma. I'm not trying to get folk to believe me, brother. I just want us, from my observation of where we are as a people, I just want us to think. In fact, I don't even want to say I want us to think outside the box. I want us to understand that the box doesn't even exist.
Wow, that's heavy.
All right.
That's heavy, right?
Because when you thinking outside the box, it means that you still got folk inside the box. When you collapse the box, everybody can see everybody, and the truth reigns supreme.
All right, gotcha.
You see? So I believe that once we understand our history and who we are,
really are.
and you know, my thing is, we don't even have to think about trying to pay somebody back for what they did.
Thank you.
Too much energy.
It's too much energy, and I don't have time for that. We must take care of our own. And we have to do it in a way that our community can feel the love, the respect, the honor that is a universal principle that happened to have been given to the world through African people.
But I think that we have been so warped into hating ourselves that I think a lot of us people of African descent feel like we don't really like being black. Like, we won't say it. It's like a subconscious thing.
That's right.
So a person to say, well, I know I'm black because when you look in the mirror, you see you're black, but I ain't a nigga like you because I'm light skinned and you're dark, or because I'm educated and you're not, because I have on gold and you don't, or because I live in the suburbs and you wear gold. It's almost anything to remove yourself from being commonality of just being black or human. And that's the step. That's the brain, and it's so deeply ingrained that we don't even see it. It's almost like, yeah, I know I'm black, but I just can't see the rest of you people as being okay.
But you see, that's the 97% system.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the 3.
Okay, he's like, focus on the 3 and let the vibration go out.
Focus on 3, and 3 can reach out and maybe get 5. 5 may get 10. But like all cells in your body, start with a core nucleus, and then the first shell you have 2 electrons, then the next shell you have 8 electrons. Start with what you have, and then move out from there. Instead of trying to get all the way out there and be overwhelmed with your struggle, when there are folk that are ready and willing right now but just may not know the direction to go in. We got a lot of folk like that ready to make it happen. Ready to make it happen, want to make it happen, would do anything to make it happen, but just may not have an exposure or an opportunity. Get to them. And when you get to them, everything else can come to you.
I totally agree.
That's really what I'm reaching towards right now.
So I think we should pray that we get to each other, that 3% get to each other, connect.
Yeah, well, if prayers is your way, yes.
That's a one way.
And your invocation is another.
Okay.
Yeah, brother, I'm about to wind down also.
And lastly, I want to say, because in the last lecture I did called the mythological origin of the devil, because we always say the white man is the devil, this is the devil, this is the devil. In my last lecture, I said all human beings, through their actions, words, deeds, thoughts, and emotions, can do immoral things. No one is more immoral than the other one. We focus on Europeans because they so happen to be in power. Not that Africans never did anything immoral.
Yeah, look at some of the things the Moors.
We may have not had a culture of immorality the way Europeans had it. And I came up with a new slogan. We don't need to teach, kill the white man. Teach, love the black man, woman, and child. Because that which you love for, you will kill anyway. We don't need to be killers, we need to be healers. If we are the goddesses and the gods, then we need to be healers and not killers. Because if we become killers, then we lose our humanity, our spirituality, and then we become everything that we are fighting against. White supremacy. Because if we get the guns together and they go out and kill up all the white men, now we gotta watch out for those that just went out there and killed them, because they're gonna wanna run shit.
So let me ask you a question.
So we have to learn to be healers, because I believe that the spirit that is within African people, this melanated spirit that we're talking about, is a lot more powerful than us actually having to actually go out and kill. Because even if you listen to the mythological story of Set and Heru, the battle was not won on the battlefield, it was won in the court.
Well, I disagree with you on this part.
No, this is my opinion.
Right.
You don't
You can
have to
your
agree
opinion.
with me. I don't want to argue or debate about it.
Nobody arguing and debating.
It is what I
I'm
believe.
just saying because you put it out there in the atmosphere.
There you go.
What I'm saying is I disagree with you. We need killers, we need healers, and we need scholars and teachers. We need all the above. You was just saying that to you be your way and to him be his. Just like you teach dealing with the womb of the woman, you may teach on the science of something else. We need killers. We need warriors. We need scholars. We need doctors. We need it all, brother. We can't say we don't need the killers. We need the soldiers because you could build, look at Dr. York, for example. Can you imagine if we had an army? Them police wouldn't have ran down on his land the way they did and took what they wanted from him because we had our own army. So we need that. We need to be killers. Don't you think for 1 minute that our ancient Kemetic people, brothers and sisters, was not killers. Go and look at the Temple of the Wall of Luxor and you see them. You'll see them going to war, brother. What's wrong with you, man?
It all depends
what do you
upon
think, my brother, Booker T?
Well,
we need it all.
That sounds like Dr. Jack.
Yeah, that's Doc. That's Doc. That's Dr. Phil.
You know, when you go back to the Assyrian drama and you look at that war, what you notice is that Heru, the righteous inheritor, transforms into Heru Kuti, the righteous warrior. And that in all things human, there are always times that by any means necessary.
Okay.
You never take anything off the table when you're dealing with someone who will put everything on the table.
I got you.
It goes back to Dr. Khalid when they accused him of fanning the flames of racism, okay? And Dr. Khalid would always say, yeah, I may be fanning the flames, but you started the fire.
That's right. That's right.
They used to accuse him of playing the race card. They say, you playing the race card. He said, yeah, I'm playing a race card, but you put it in the deck.
Right.
So the bottom line becomes, in any form human, you never take anything off the table. And that's what Brother Malcolm meant when he said, by any means necessary. And he wasn't saying what he was going to do. He was just saying what he wasn't going to do. And what he wasn't going to do was take anything off the table. Because when you're dealing with people, you know, I do not see a anthropomorphic or a human devil. I see a principality of evil. I don't see an anthropomorphic God. I see a principality of good.
Right.
And so people are not the devil, but they act devilish. People are not God, but they act God-like. And I'd like to wind down this presentation by telling folk, I think we can combine our forces here, by saying black folk have to understand the difference between friends, enemies, and allies.
Okay.
Because many times, if you look at World War II, Japan and Germany were our enemies and Russia and China were our friends. After the war, China and Russia became our enemies and Japan and Germany became our friends. So who were our allies became our enemies and who are our enemies became our allies. Black folk have a problem because they believe that once you are an ally, it make you a friend. And that's just not true. Because you got some folk out here that'll be your ally, but after the deed is done and they get what they want, they will become your enemy. And a worse enemy than the enemy you combined to fight in the first place. And we have to have the kind of sense to be able to make that happen. But too many times we perceive our enemies to be our allies and our allies to be our friends, and they're not. And we have to make that distinction, that clear distinction. And we have to understand through our own stories and through our own mythologies that as we go through this process and we go through this educational piece, that we have to understand very clearly and scientifically that this curriculum exists. There is a way that we can educate our children to become productive citizens of the cosmic universe.
Right.
To be able to return the earth back to its balance.
Right.
Clear the sun, clear the water, clean the earth. We can do this. And it's in our hands. But how long will it take before we realize this?
Right.
So may I say what a pleasure it has been to stand across the street from the Apollo Theater.
Brother.
Sonetta, I appreciate you, Brother Tahuti. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate all of y'all taking this time out. And if anybody would like to contact me, my email. It's Kamene, K-A-M-E-N-E 777 at AOL.com. I have a study guide that I will send back to you.
to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about, this curriculum. And I just want us to understand that with all that we're going through and all that we see, I want us all to go back, and I want you to listen to the song entitled I Believe I Can Fly.
R. Kelly?
R. Kelly. You know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
And I want you to think of it, think of the words of the song as a person enslaved on a plantation in 1700 South Carolina.
That's right.
I want you to perceive those words as somebody who's on a plantation who is crying out for help and explaining all the things that they would like to do in their life and all that they could become if given a chance. I believe I can fly. And I want you to realize that in that song, when our ancestors on the plantation were singing that song, they were talking about us. Everything that they ever dreamed that they would ever be able to do on that plantation 200 years ago is who we are today. And when you wake up in the morning and think that you're having a hard time, be ashamed. Because if our ancestors, knowing that they would never be free, were willing to spend another day in the process of liberating themselves, knowing that they would not be free, but that somebody would. We are free because of what they did. We have no right to think, now is the time to stop. Now is the time, it's too difficult. If anything, let us get stronger and let us get more powerful and let us understand that this thing right here, we shall overcome by any means necessary. Marcus Garvey teaches us we're a mighty people who will rise by the will of our will, because Bob Marley say, no one can curse who Jah has blessed.
That's right.
And the fact that we up here on 125th Street joined together this way, brothers and sisters, males and females, we have been blessed.
There you go.
Don't lose that blessings. It's powerful. And for those that would like to come out, here we have something on September 16th. We're going to have a serious summit honoring all those who have been part of this struggle. And let me tell you something else. I used to participate in a program called Gathering of the Masters, where some of the greatest speakers, Dr. Phil Valentine and Dr. Jewel Pookrum, Bobby Hammond, we all went down to Atlanta. But guess what? The Gathering of the Masters were not the speakers who were speaking. The Gathering of the Masters were the people who came to hear it. So come on out and be a master.
Right.
Master of your own destiny.
Why is that important, brother? The 13th anniversary of the House of Consciousness.
That's because that's your thing, and the 13 and the number 13 is important, brother.
Whoa, number 13.
Number 13
A lot of
is
people
important.
came through that house.
Oh yeah,
The House of Consciousness.
absolutely,
A lot of people, brother.
absolutely. And if you check out Facebook, you'll see it all. And while you're at it, check it out. It's all there. You know, like Listerville Middleton said, sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear. Minute by minute, hour by hour, you lose your history and you lose your power.
Who that?
Who this? This is Brother Kaba right there. Come on out and check us out.
That's right, my
Shem
brother.
Hotep. Amun is satisfied.
Okay.